Hey guys, welcome back to Lip Ripping with Mo. I get asked a lot because I've been using them a lot here lately and doing fairly well with them out here in Lake Fork, you know, the famous Lake Fork. And how I'm catching some of these unders out there. And simply put, I now keep 4 different sissy sticks loaded with drop shots. That's right. 4 different colors, 4 different sizes, 4 different types of drop shotting to catch these unders out here on Lake Fork. So I'm just going to go over how I set this thing up, the knot that I'm using, and all that other good stuff, the equipment basically, right? And then let me know if you have questions. So without any further delays, we'll get into that. All right, so first let's talk rod and reel and a little bit of string. Those are the most critical components anyways. I'm using a Kistler Helium. One of these days I'll learn how to talk. Rod and a Kistler 2000 series reel. And it's the Helium. Right here you can kind of see it's a light, medium, heavy, which is kind of stiff, but for my purposes I like to use a 1/4 ounce drop shot weight. And with this rod being the 3 level of power, it's perfect for my type of fishing. It is also 7 foot in length, nice cork handle. It's a pretty light setup in all fairness, but it does the job of what I want it to do, and that's even handled some nice slot fish here just the same. But again, it's a Kistler Helium, light and medium heavy, with a Kistler 2000 series reel. And the string that I use most of the time, because I'm just like everybody else out there, I use a braided line to fluorocarbon leader. I'm using spider wire 10-pound braid, high vis, and then 10-pound fluorocarbon from Seaguar. Most of the time I'm running the Tatsu, but for demonstration purposes I'll show you how to tie the knot that I use here with Invisics. But those are the simple components. And then last but not least, the hook. Most of the time I'm using a VMC hook. This is the Finesse Nico hook, size 1, again most of the time. And then I'll up to a size 2 Nico hook. These have that little fluorocarbon bait keepers up there, so you don't go through as many worms and flat worms and things like that as quick. Finesse worms, etc., etc. So I really like these, plus they're really sharp and sticky. They're just a good all-around hook, and they're not made in China, unlike some of the hooks out there today, but we won't go down that road. But that's just me trying to keep everything American made here as much as possible. That Kistler rod is made in America, made in Texas as a matter of fact, and then most of these other components are made in the USA just the same. But that reel is made in South Korea, I believe it is. South Korea is where Kistler gets those from. But all in all, to me, this is the system that works. I typically fish finesse style worms anywhere from 3.5 inches. Sometimes I'll use a minnow style bait, but we'll go all that in further details. The last thing that's most important is the drop shot weight. And I do something a little bit unique with my drop shot weights to help me tie them, and I'll go over that here later. All right, so for me to connect my fluorocarbon leader to my braided line, again, both of those are 10-pound test. I use what's called the Alberto knot, and to me it's the simplest knot. I think the Yucatan is also a pretty simple knot to tie, but I use the Alberto knot, and it's very simple to tie. You can tie it in less than a minute. But all you do is you take your fluorocarbon line, Can't see that over my beard. And loop it back over itself, and then run some braided line through that loop that you just created and pinch it down, just like that. And after you pinch it, you want to take your tag end that you just ran through, and remember the direction that you just ran it through. I always run mine up. It's real simple. And then you take that tag and you go over both pieces of your loop on your fluorocarbon 7 times down. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it looks something like that. And then you pinch it back, and then you can let go from the first pinch and then wrap it back up the exact same trail, same path, 7 times again. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the reason why I say remember how important it was of where you're bringing your line in, you want to run this braided line right back through the opposite direction of the fluorocarbon loop. And that way it kind of looks like that right there. And then all you got to do is take those wraps and wet them down just a tiny bit. Grab all 4 of your lines, both tag ends and your main lines on your fluorocarbon and your braid, and pinch them down like that. Just pull. And then once you get the knot started, you can see where I got a little extra spit on there. Then let go of both of your tag lines and really get into it and lock it in place. And then when you're done, you end up with a very flat knot like that, that's going to go through those eyes without snagging, going out when you're making a cast and coming in when you're cranking your bait back in or cranking a fish in. You take your cutters and you simply cut your tag lines off like that, as close as you can to the knot. Cut the braid and cut the fluoro tags, obviously, right? And then when you're done with that, you will have one of the strongest wrapped knots, to me, that you can have without having to put a bunch of half hitches on the back or the front to protect it like some of the other knots out there. And that's what it looks like. You can barely see that. So I've never had that knot fail me. This knot, when I hung up, I actually broke the knot tying the same fluorocarbon leader to my hook or my shaky head or whatever I was throwing that day before this knot would break, if that tells you anything. So I'm very confident in this knot. Again, it's called the Alberto knot. You make a loop with your fluorocarbon, just like that, and then wrap your braid down 7 and then back up 7, giving you 14. Some people want to use 8 wraps. I use 7, and then run it out the exact same opposite direction that you came in through this loop right here. Pull all 4 down to start the knot, wet it, let go of your fluorocarbon tag, let go of your braid tag, take the main lines of both your fluorocarbon and your braid and lock that bad boy in place. That knot right there will not fail you. So another thing that I do when rigging up a drop shot that's kind of unique compared to maybe the way you're doing it or the way the other folks are doing it is when I tie my hook on, I'm not using the Palomar knot. I never use a Palomar knot on fluorocarbon 9. That's me. I hear rumors, I talk to other people, everybody's using a jam knot. Or not everybody, most folks are using a jam knot. I use a jam knot too. Except for when I'm tying this little hook on this little line here, I'm using a double jam to get my hook with a strong knot on it and it sticks straight out like you want it to do. So let me walk you through how I do that. The first thing I do is I take my VMC 1/0 finesse Nico, and I'm running my line through the top where the hook is facing up. And once I do that, I once again pull out enough leader, enough tag, a good 1.5 to 18 inches plus or minus, right? And then I double back up on itself and make this here loop. Now that I've made a loop, I'm taking my hook, okay, and I'm wrapping it inside that loop. Once again, using the factor of 7, right? This is the hardest part because it can be kind of tricky, especially out in the wind. But the number one thing is just wrap it, okay? Don't make it overly complicated. Just wrap your hook in there 7 times. Try your best not to let it twist. And then as you're wrapping that up, as you can see, I got twists, aka jam knotting, on both sides of my hook. So this is when I get 7 wraps, you can see as I'm pulling on this tag, that knot is starting to form. Okay? And then I'll pull the main line, and you can see that it's wrapping and twisting. Put a little spit on there, water, whatever you want to do. Right? The point is, now, boom, right there, boom. I've got a hook that's got a jam knot at the top of it and the bottom of it. And look how that hook's sitting there, all nice and pretty. And I've got a trusted jam knot on both sides of that bad boy. If it breaks, I've never had it break unless I'm having to break it off. So you can see that's just about perfect, 90 degrees. I've trusted this since I've been rigging it. The other thing that I like to do is with my weight. And let's go over that real quick. Most drop shot weights have the little snap at the top of it, and there's nothing wrong with the snap, except for, to me, it pinches the line, cuts it and breaks it, and then you're losing drop shot weights. And if you're using tungsten, that stuff gets expensive. So what I do is I take that little snap and I stick a flathead screwdriver down off in there, tiny little flathead screwdriver, and I open that bad boy up. Hoping y'all can see that. And then from there, I can run my line through, put a 1/2 hitch, put another 1/2 hitch on, double 1/2 hitched. This ain't going nowhere. Done. I don't have to worry about my line being pinched. I don't have to worry about it just slipping through the snap and making a cast. I got a double 1/2 hitch knot on there just by opening that up. Okay. Who cares if it's bent or anything? It doesn't really matter. But all you gotta do is open that up and put 2 1/2 hitches on there. This knot's not going anywhere. So that's how I do my weight setup. So as you can see, here's my hook with a 90-degree angle on it, and depending how long you need your leader, there's my weight just dangling. All right, I've got my hand away from it. I got my hand like I'm holding the rod straight up and down. That hook is out to the right. Looks fantastic. It feels fantastic. You take your trusted worm here that you want to use. I thread mine on, spin it around, and come up above the little barb there. The little piece of fluorocarbon that they got right there. And then I Texas rig my little finesse worms. The reason why I'm doing that is because I fish a lot of brush, fish a lot of bushes, but at the end of the day, it works in any and all occasions, and it does what you need it to do. And for me, Look at that. When that thing's in the water, look at that. It's straight out to the side. Imagine that with a minnow bait on there, or a little swim bait. Imagine that with a flat tail worm. This here is a Zoom finesse worm. It's 4.5 inches long or so, and that's a 1/0 hook in there. And when they eat that, you know about it. So one of the questions that I want to finish this with that I get is, well, how do you feel the bite? What does a bite on a drop shot feel like? And only thing I can describe it, to me, it feels just like any other Texas rig creature bait type of bite, a Texas rig worm. Think about this, right? You're tight lining all the way down to the bottom with weight and a piece of soft plastic. And when a fish grabs that, you feel the initial strike, and as they begin to pick it up and swim up with it, you've got pressure coming on your rod. Same thing. So if you're dropping this down past a bridge pillar, you're going to feel that tick, and next thing you know, your rod's just going to get heavy. And that's the other reason for using the high visibility braided line from Spider Wider called DuraBraid, right? Is you can actually see your line swim off. And so the other commonly question that I get is, how much leader line do I use? And for me, I don't think there's a good or bad length for drop shotting. I typically will have 2.5 rod lengths on, typically. So in essence, with this Kistler helium rod that I got, you're looking at about 14 to 17 foot possibly of leader line. Why do I put so much? Well, number one, I want enough line going down into the water where they can't see the braid. I don't know if that's right or wrong or not. Again, it's what works for me. So if I've got 8 to 10 foot of clear line coming above, chances are low they're going to see that and freak out. Secondly, I don't want, when I'm reeling it in, I don't want to have that knot being bent over at the end of the rod and under duress while I'm moving from point A to point B. So I keep a little bit wrapped up on my reel. And then the last thing, again, this is just my opinion, as I'm casting that bad boy out, I get the momentum going through the eyelets, and I don't have to worry about getting loops in my line as the bait's going out. Depending on who you talk to, some people say get 3 to 5 feet of leader. Don't put any more than that for right the opposite reasons, that will prevent looping. I think, to me, the looping is either bad product or the reel's not putting the line on, the string on properly. That's what's causing you loops if you try to sling it. But for the most part, as long as you've got good equipment, good line, heavy enough weight, right, you're going to be okay. But for Lake Fork, you're going to want 10-pound Seaguar Invesix or Tatsu with the Alberto knot to some DuraBraid from Spider Wire. That's also 10-pound, connected to a 1/0 or a 2/0 finesse Nico, however you say it, hook. These red lines are really cool from VMC. Again, they got that little fluorocarbon bait keeper up there, prevents you from going into so many worms. And again, I like the tungsten drop shot weights. I really like the, I guess they're called a teardrop style, but nonetheless, I like those. And again, I take the gap with a flathead, open it up, and so I can tie either a 3 to 4 twist jam knot and just sink it down and clip it, or 2 half hitches serves the same purpose. And then after that, everything's tied up with the Alberto knot, going to the Kistler helium rods with a Kistler reel, 2000 series Kistler reel. I am on Kistler's field staff, so I'm using their products. Again, they're made here in Texas with Japanese made blanks, nothing from China. So that's why I like Team Kistler, supporting Texas. But they're sensitive, light rods, and they just get the job done. So if you have any questions about the Kistler rod, feel free to let me know. Put it down there in the comments. Other words, that's how I rig my drop shot here on Lake Fork, and I'm fishing 4 of these bad boys nowadays with 4 different colors, 4 different sizes of worms, 4 different baits of worms, whether it's a Berkeley, Zoom, 6 Sense. I'm fishing a variety to see if I can get bit, and sometimes that's what it takes. But again, hope that helps you out. If you got any questions about how I rig my drop shot, again, put them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. Y'all have a fine day. Be safe out there.